Internet, what's going on? Robert Teegarden back today with another video for you. Working on a first impressions video of the Sony FX3. Before we get started, if you haven't already, I would love it if you would subscribe to the channel. I post content on a regular basis on filmmaking tips and the business of being a creative. So if that's something that interests you, please consider subscribing, liking, sharing, and all that sort of stuff. So I got this in the mail 2 days ago. Didn't get a chance to open it until last night, and I shot with it this morning. First impressions are things that I want to go over. I understand all of the different things that go into the impressions of this camera. It is a Sony A7S Mark III in a different form factor and a different body, if you will. It just basically has this top handle thing with the, XLR Sony digital audio mount on the top of it. I totally understand that. I understand the criticism of why exactly do we have this camera when we already have the Sony A7S Mark III. It just doesn't have an EVF and all this different stuff. Let me explain. I personally did not have the Sony A7S Mark III. I was waiting to see if that was a camera that I wanted to buy. This came up and I went, I only shoot stills maybe 10% of the time I have a camera in my hand, and I have other cameras to do still work. 90% of the time I'm shooting video. This is a video camera, hence the thing that's on the top that says Cinema Line. I decided to take my chances with this thing, knowing that very many, that a lot of people would be shooting with the Sony A7S Mark III, and so that I could easily pair next to them, being that it is effectively the same camera, but it has a bunch of cool stuff that that one doesn't have, and I like those things. So with that out of the way, now I just wanted to kind of give you what my first impression is with this thing. First of all, it's very nice to hold. It's beefy. It definitely has, now for sake of clarification, I'm coming from an A7 Mark III, and so this thing definitely has a lot more heft and weight to it. A lot of stuff that I actually really love so far is that the doors are not those dingy little flippy out plastic things. They're actually really nice, kind of sliding back and forth. There's a nice matte finish to them. So doors feel really nice. Of course, we love the fully articulating screen. I had a chance to interview one of the directors of marketing for Sony for North America. I point blank asked him, how many millions of dollars do you have invested in that stupid ass screen that everyone hates and nobody wants? How and when and what can we do to get this articulating screen? Well, 2 years later, we finally have one. Takes some time, but at least we get it, and that's cool. The other thing I love about this is the batteries are the same as the Sony A7S and the 7 III and all of the different things. I've got tons of these. That's fantastic. I don't have to change anything on my charging station or the batteries that I have. It's super cool. All of the stuff that you think that's rad, the quarter 20s that are mounted in there, the record button, everything's cool. They did get rid of a ton of the dial functions that you would have that have photo mobility and modalities on them, and they replaced them with all cinema style things. So you've got your peaking, zebra, your shutter speed, you have the different display settings that are going to go on the back of the camera, the viewfinder, whatever you want to call it. I'm not used to this yet. I have a feeling that I will be very soon, but this is definitely throwing me off, especially because I had my own custom programming on this wheel itself. But I'm sure with time I'll be fine with that as well. The joystick is up on the top. It's kind of strange if you're used to a photo style, but I tend to be like Mr. Gerald Undone says, I'm shooting from the hip, and so it's not really a huge issue for me. The other thing that I will mention, and this is probably just me being a complete idiot, is that it took me a while to figure out how to open the SD card slot door. I thought that I would just kind of like open it this way and it would flip out towards me. Nay, don't think so. It's pulling down and pushing back. If I'm being very honest with you guys, which I always try to, that was about 12 minutes of me trying to figure that out. Sometimes it looks like I have it all figured out. Let me reassure you, I'm a complete dunce 90% of the time. All you see is the polished edit highlights of my life. What else do I really love about this thing? The other thing that I think is fantastic is this audio module that's on the top. Go figure. When you're shooting video, that is definitely something that's really important. Audio can make or break a deal. 70% of what you see is sound. You guys have heard me say that 10,000 times, but it's still very true. So I got a chance to shoot some images with it today. I will tell you the IBIS in this camera is really nice, and I'm really excited to continue to play with that. I shoot fully manual cine lenses most of the time. I have the Rokinon kit that's on my my person, and that's what I use to shoot. I do run around without a focus puller, run and gun shooting, handheld with the focus ring in my hand or on a gimbal. So using a non-image stabilized lens with this new 5-axis in-body stabilization, it's a really nice image. I know, especially when you start to pair it with Sony's own native image stabilization software, you can get some pretty fantastic results. And I'm just already really impressed with this. Obviously, it gets better stabilization if you're shooting at higher frame rates, and I was shooting at 60 frames a second this morning when I was using this. So the images that I was getting were noticeably better in terms of the stabilization. Obviously, incredible codecs in terms of 422 10-bit where color was concerned. And that's the other thing. I know that a lot of people were talking about the S3 having noticeably better color science. I found that to be true with this as well. It's a very cursory look in terms of what the color looks like, but it's noticeably better on my side. I'm shooting in P11, in S-Cinetone, S-Log3, and grading the stuff was definitely a noticeable improvement in terms of what skin tones looked like. I tend to have a magenta shift in the A7 III that I was always constantly correcting for. This doesn't seem to have that issue. I'm sure I'll uncover its own kind of idiosyncrasies there, but color's fantastic. Handheld shooting seems to be much better. Obviously, much better codecs and higher bit rates than I'm used to, all put inside of this camera itself. Again, bummer, no internal NDs. That's fine. I can live with that. My plan is to pair this with the Sony FX3 is kind of my cinema kit and have different lenses and cameras in the bag for my still shooting, which, like I mentioned, is a lot shorter period of time. But so far, really happy with this thing. I have to play around with this audio top handle and figure out exactly how I can configure it to my liking. The other thing I want to figure out is how to mount a monitor on the top handle in a way in which I'm used to. And I know it seems crazy counterintuitive based on what the body's design is. I still think I want a cage on this thing. It doesn't have to be a full one, but there are definitely accessories that I feel like I'm going to need, that the 5 quarter 20s that are on this, plus the 1, 2, 3 quarter 20s that are on the top handle. They're great. I think they will be enough for what they intended, but the certain things that I like to put on to my cameras, small rig monitor mounts and those sorts of things, handles, I don't have those options, or at least seamless ones where this is concerned. The other thing that I will say is that if you are using this camera without the top handle, which shooting with the gimbal I could absolutely see myself doing, when you open up the door for the 3.5mm audio jack and or the headphone jack, having your screen fully articulate without hitting the door is it's a thing. And that's super frustrating, because one of the things that I love the most about this camera is the fact that I now have a fully articulating screen, which I presume would give me less necessity for having an external monitor on this camera as often as I did my A7 Mark III. So if I'm not shooting top handle, and this is not going into the top handle's 3.5mm jack, which I have now, I'm just like so awkwardly holding this whole thing. This screen hitting the door is going to be an issue unless I just keep nixing the door, or figure out a way of doing this thing and shooting with it. This morning, I had a handful of times where I was visibly irritated that was the case, spending $3,800 on a run and gun handheld cinema camera. Anywho, I plan on using this extensively over the next several weeks once I kind of have all of my thoughts put down on paper and I understand exactly what I want to translate over to you guys to give you some real world scenarios, both in image and use cases, flying this thing on a gimbal, handheld, stick shooting, all those sorts of things. I'll be coming back to you guys, so stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss that video. Like this video if you like the damn video. And if you think that anyone else might find this video interesting, because I know that there's not a lot of people that actually own this camera that are posting videos about it on YouTube, why don't you go ahead and share it with those people that you think might find it interesting? And with that being said, ladies and germs, this is Robert Teegarden with another video in the can. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.